Good morning. It's May 29th. I made it into Pennsylvania yesterday. Roxylvania, here I come. A little bit of a slow start this morning, but I'm feeling good. Try to make a few miles today. I do have to go back into town today, so I won't play as many as I prefer. But we'll see what happens, I didn't get everything done I needed to yesterday before I ran out of time. I had to hitch back before it got too late. If it's after dark, you can't get a hitch. So, anyway, I'm gonna cross this little stream, hike up. There's a road 2.5 miles that take me back into Waynesboro. So, that's where I'm going for this morning. And then, when I get back into the trail later, there's a shelter in a couple more miles. So that's probably where I'll end up today. Saw a deer. I see a deer right there. First I thought it was a stump, but no, that's a deer staring right at me. Oh. Half an hour I was hearing thunder, and my weather app said there would give me thunderstorms for 3 hours. Now it's blue skies and sunny. Love how the weather changes when you go over a mountain. Yesterday, I ran into some hikers that I had met down in the south. Shout out to Sunshine and Meatball. Anyway, I ran into some hikers, and they told me that the day before, when I was at Raven Rock Shelter, they got about 3/4 of an inch of rain and pounded on, and I got nothing. It didn't even it barely sprinkled. So, just a couple miles on the trail, the weather, it can be drastically, violently different. You never know what to expect. But I've learned stopping for other reasons is fine. Stopping because you think the weather is going to get bad is usually a dumb idea, unless you're up on a mountaintop and you can see the bad weather coming towards you, in which case you better get yourself under cover as soon as possible. I made it to the shelter just in time to avoid this. Oh, that was a close one. This is an interesting shelter. There's actually 2 shelters. I'll show you tomorrow or later once it stops raining. But there's 2 little shelters. There's another guy in the other shelter, but I figured I'd stay in this one to give him a little privacy, me a little privacy. And these are little tiny ones, 4 people shelters, but there's 2, so you could fit 8 people in the 2 shelters. So I stayed tonight at the derelict shelter. As you can see, it's a pretty small shelter. Apparently this is a design in southern PA. They have not 1, but 2 small shelters very close to each other. So I kind of like it. There was somebody staying at the other shelter last night, and yet it felt very private. I was in my own little shelter, and he was in his own little shelter, and it was nice. But it rained pretty heavy, but today it's nice and sunny. I've taken a slow start today. I gotta get hiking. Mileage today is a little weird. There is a shelter in 3.5 miles. I really wanted to push onto that shelter last night, but it rained pretty heavily for about 2 hours, and I didn't. It stopped raining around 7:30, and by then I had like an hour. This is a weird place to have a foot traffic only sign. I mean, yes, we are on another trail, but it looks like a foot trail. I mean, maybe people take horses down it, I guess. But, yeah, weird. Alright, everybody. It's about 8:15 on Friday, May 31st. I wanted to be up earlier than this hiking, because I'm going to try to do 10 miles today, which is pretty long for me. In fact, if I do it, it'll be the longest mileage I've done on trail so far this year. But that was not in the cards. It got really cold last night. By cold, I mean it was in the 40s. I zipped my sleeping bag all the way up and burrowed down in it, and I was warm enough. But boy, am I glad I kept my sleeping bag. When I was back in Waynesboro, PA, yesterday, 2 days ago, I was considering mailing my sleeping bag home because I figured it was summertime. But man, I'm glad I hung on to it. I'm hoping to get to Fayetteville today. That's also the road that leads to Gettysburg if I decide to go into Gettysburg and check out the historical scenes. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do that or not. I'd like to, but I'm not sure. But first I've got to do 10 miles to get to that town, and starting off the day with a steep and rocky uphill. So I got to put my phone down and focus on this so I don't fall and get hurt. Well, it's 2:36. I made it to Rocky Mountain Shelter. Rocky Mountain Shelter is 3/10 of a mile on the trail, so I will not be going there. The road that I'm trying to get to today is another 3 miles. Mostly downhill, I think. It's 2:30. I should be able to make it by 5 or so, I think. I've got just over half a liter of water, so I have to make that last. So I guess today's gonna be a 10-mile day. I'm 1.5 miles from the road. Means I've come 8.5 miles today. Talked to a guy going south. He said he's just doing an out and back one overnight, on a trail shelter. Anyway, he said after I went past 2 little clumps of rock garden, which I did the second one, then it was pretty cruisy to the road. So hopefully I don't have any more rocks between here and the road, or not any big ones anyway. But doesn't matter if I do. I'm almost out of water. I have no options but to push to the road, and once I get there it'll be 10 miles for the day. I'm proud of myself. I won't be there by 5, I don't think, but by 6 I should be there. I average about 45-minute miles. So, not the fastest hiker in the world, but I'm hiking it. And you can too. So I checked my far out at 4:44, and it said that I had a mile to go. Just checked it, it's 4:58, and I only have 0.6 of a mile to go. So I'm making better time than I expected to, as tired as I am. Of course, it's all downhill. The last mile was all downhill, so that makes up a little, and the trail is pretty smooth. So made it to the road just before 5:30, maybe 5:25 it made it to the road. The road is pretty busy, so I called, and the hostel person is going to come pick me up, thankfully. I wouldn't want to try to walk on this, and I'm pretty exhausted anyway.